Most people believe that silence is simply the absence of words, but the ancient Stoics saw it very differently. To them, there were moments when silence was not a sign of fear, insecurity, or weakness. It was a display of strength that very few people were capable of achieving. The problem is that almost no one knows how to recognize those moments, so when they are provoked, humiliated, or treated unfairly, they react immediately. They try to explain themselves. They try to win the argument. They try to convince others that their version of the story is the right one. And without realizing it, they give the other person exactly what they wanted from the very beginning, their peace. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you walked away from a conversation regretting everything you said? How many times have you thought of the perfect response hours later, or realized far too late that silence would have been far more powerful than any argument you could have made? The truth is that there are moments when responding feels like an act of courage, when in reality it is exactly the opposite. It is the moment you hand control of your emotions to someone who may not even deserve a second of your attention. The Stoics understood this nearly 2,000 years ago. They knew that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every provocation deserves a response. And above all, they understood that the person who masters their own reactions gains a kind of freedom that no one else can take away. In this video, you will discover 3 moments when silence is worth more than any response. The third one is the hardest of all because it involves a situation where almost every human being feels an overwhelming need to justify themselves. Once you understand this principle, you will find it much harder to give your peace away so easily. Marcus Aurelius wrote that peace of mind depends far more on how we interpret events than on the events themselves. Epictetus taught that it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And Seneca reminded us that the greatest victory is not defeating another person, but refusing to let them rule our emotions. Those teachings are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago. We live in a world where a single message, a comment, or a careless remark is enough to make someone lose their composure. It has never been easier to react, and because of that, it has never been rarer to find someone who remains calm when everyone expects them to explode. The silence we are talking about today is not the silence of fear. It is not about accepting abuse. It is not about letting people walk all over you. It is the silence chosen by someone who understands that reacting impulsively almost always benefits the person who started the conflict. Moment 1. When someone tries to provoke you. There is a certain kind of person who is not looking for a conversation. They are looking for a reaction. You have probably met someone like this at work, within your family, or even on social media. Their goal is rarely to understand you. Their goal is to test your limits. They want to discover how much control they still have over your emotions. That is why they make sarcastic remarks, use a mocking tone, or repeat the exact words they know will bother you. They are not trying to exchange ideas. They are trying to make you lose control. And here is the trap that most people never notice. The moment you react impulsively, the provocation has already succeeded. It does not matter whether your arguments were correct. It does not matter whether you were right. The moment you lose your peace, the other person has already achieved exactly what they wanted. The Stoics believed that the first battle always takes place inside your own mind. Before responding to someone else, there is a far more important question to ask yourself. Will this response actually improve the situation? Or will it simply feed the conflict? Imagine a fire. If no one adds more wood, the flames eventually die out. But the moment you keep feeding it, the fire grows stronger. Arguments work the same way. Many people believe that responding immediately is a sign of strength. In reality, in many situations, it only proves that someone has discovered exactly which buttons to push to control your emotions. Of course, this does not mean accepting disrespect. There are moments when you must set boundaries, defend your rights, or take a firm stand. But firmness is not the same as impulsiveness. Someone who reacts in the heat of anger speaks to release their frustration. Someone who pauses for a moment speaks to solve the problem. And that difference changes everything. If these reflections are helping you develop greater emotional maturity, subscribe to Stoic Spring. With every new video, you will build the habit of protecting your inner peace and growing wiser in the face of life's challenges. The next time someone tries to provoke you, pause for just a moment and ask yourself one simple question. Does this person deserve to control my emotional state for the next few minutes? Is my peace really worth giving away just to satisfy their expectations? Most of the time, you will realize that your silence was not an act of avoidance. It was a choice. Moment 2. When someone tries to humiliate you in front of others. If provocation is meant to steal your peace, humiliation is meant to steal your dignity. And perhaps this is one of the hardest situations to face because it awakens something deeply human, the desire to prove that we are right. Picture the scene. You are at work, having dinner with your family, or spending time with friends. Suddenly, someone makes a sarcastic remark about you. Everyone turns to look. Some people laugh. Others simply wait to see how you will react. In that moment, you feel that you have to respond. You have to prove your intelligence. You have to put that person in their place. But that is exactly where the trap lies. People who humiliate others in public are usually expecting a public reaction. Not because they want to solve the conflict, but because they know that public arguments attract attention and feed their own ego. It is as if they were saying, "I managed to get under your skin." The Stoics taught that no one can truly take away your dignity without your cooperation. That does not mean words cannot hurt. Of course they can. But there is a profound difference between feeling the pain of an insult and allowing that pain to decide how you will behave. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that other people's opinions could never change who he truly was. If someone praised him unfairly, he did not become a better person. If someone criticized him unfairly, he did not become a worse one. That kind of freedom is difficult to achieve, because from childhood we are taught that we must win arguments in order to protect our image. Yet life teaches exactly the opposite. How many times have you seen someone completely lose the moral high ground simply because they lost control? Maybe their arguments were excellent. Maybe their cause was just. But the moment they raised their voice, lashed out, or reacted aggressively, people's attention shifted away from the injustice and toward their behavior. That is why silence at certain moments speaks louder than the most brilliant response. When you remain calm, something interesting happens. The people watching begin to focus more on the person who attacked you than on you. Without realizing it, the audience changes its attention. One person is desperately trying to win through humiliation. The other quietly demonstrates that their worth does not depend on winning an argument. And that is not because silence is a manipulation technique. It is because emotional composure naturally earns respect. Think about the people you admire the most. Do they lose control every time someone criticizes them? Do they react to every insult? Or do they project strength because they carefully choose when speaking is actually worth it? There is a quiet kind of power in someone who refuses to react impulsively. It is not passivity, it is self-mastery. And self-mastery has always been far rarer than intelligence. Before responding to a public insult, ask yourself one more question. Am I trying to solve this situation? Or am I simply trying to protect my ego in front of everyone else? The answer may completely change the way you deal with conflict for the rest of your life. Moment 3. When someone spreads lies about you. Of all the moments when silence may be the wisest response, this is perhaps the hardest. Because few things hurt more than discovering that someone is spreading lies about you. It is almost impossible not to feel the urge to explain yourself to everyone. You begin imagining conversations. You gather evidence. You prepare arguments. You rehearse entire speeches in your mind, all because you believe that if you explain yourself well enough, people will finally understand. But life rarely works that way. People who spread lies are rarely searching for the truth. They are searching for influence, and many times the more desperately you try to put out the fire, the more fuel you unknowingly add to it. Seneca observed that spending your energy trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding you is often a waste of the two things you can never recover: your time and your peace of mind. This does not mean remaining silent in the face of every injustice. There are moments when you should clarify the facts, protect your reputation, or take the appropriate action to prevent greater harm. But there is a tremendous difference between acting with calm confidence and spending your life trying to convince every single person who heard a distorted version of your story. When your life becomes an endless series of explanations, you end up handing your peace over to people who may never have wanted to understand you in the first place. And here is a difficult truth to accept. Not everyone wants to hear your side. Some people prefer the version that confirms what they already chose to believe. Accepting that truth hurts, but it also sets you free. because from that moment forward, you understand that your responsibility is not to control everyone's opinion. Your responsibility is to live in such a way that over time your character speaks louder than any rumor ever could. Character always takes longer to reveal itself than a lie, but once it does, it usually lasts much longer. Now I would like to ask you something different. Without mentioning any names, have you ever experienced a situation where someone spread lies about you, and the more you tried to explain yourself, the worse everything became? Share your experience in the comments. Your story may become exactly the encouragement someone else needed to read today. Perhaps at this point, you are thinking that staying silent means allowing people to do whatever they want. But that was never the Stoic message. The Stoics did not teach people to avoid conflict. They taught us to choose which conflicts are truly worth our energy. There is a tremendous difference between remaining silent because you are afraid and remaining silent because you no longer feel the need to prove anything. There is a difference between accepting injustice and refusing to let that injustice control your emotions. There is a difference between giving up and realizing that some battles cost far more than they are worth. Throughout this video, we explored 3 moments when silence can be worth more than any response. When someone tries to provoke you, when someone tries to humiliate you in front of others, and when someone spreads lies about you. In every one of those moments, there is an overwhelming temptation to react immediately. But there is also another choice. The choice to protect the one thing no argument can ever give back once it has been lost: your inner peace. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the best way to defend yourself is to avoid becoming like those who hurt you. Take a moment to think about that. When someone behaves aggressively and you answer with the same aggression, who really won? When someone loses control and succeeds in making you lose control as well, who remained truly free? Real strength does not reveal itself when life is easy. It reveals itself when you have every reason to explode and still choose to act with wisdom instead of impulse. That does not mean you should never respond. There will be moments when you must say no. There will be moments when you must establish boundaries. There will be moments when justice requires a firm response. But a response born from calm reflection will always be more powerful than a reaction born from wounded emotion, because calmness is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of freedom. The freedom to refuse to let someone else decide how you feel. The freedom to stop wasting your life trying to convince people who have already decided not to understand you. The freedom to know that your worth does not depend on the opinions of those who have never truly known your character. In the end, silence is not a weapon for defeating other people. It is a shelter that protects what is most valuable within you: your peace. If this reflection has brought value to your life, subscribe to Stoic Spring. With every new video, you will strengthen the habit of protecting your inner peace and growing in emotional maturity, one lesson at a time. And before you go, I want to leave you with one final question. Which of these 3 moments is the hardest for you? Provocation, humiliation, or lies? Write only the number 1, 2, or 3 in the comments, and if you would like, tell us why you chose that one. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Always remember this: not every response is a sign of strength. Sometimes, the most powerful response is the one that never needs to be spoken.